I know there is a reason, sometimes hard to understand. It never seems there's time enough to do the things we plan. We only have a lifetime with just a grain of sand. And before you know it, it slips right through your hand. And when you celebrate, when old memories come to mind, hear the echo of my laughter, and I'll be at your side. And when you celebrate, oh, smile a smile for me. Think of all the good times when you think of me. Dream of tomorrow and what the future may hold. Look back with no regret, may all your dreams unfold. Never take it all for granted, make a difference if you can. We'll all be together someday soon, forever hand in hand. So when you celebrate, when old memories come to mind, hear the echo of my laughter, and I'll be at your side. And when you celebrate, oh, smile a smile for me. And think of all the good times, oh, when you think of me. So many blessings I have had along the way, so much love to guide me through. And with all the fortunes, all the pockets lined with gold, there are none so rich as I from knowing you. And when you celebrate, when old memories come to mind, hear the echo of my laughter, and I'll be by your side. And when you celebrate, oh, raise your glass to me. Remember all the good times, oh, when you think of me.
Who fills his niche Gene had much more to give. And he fought death with everything that he had, not only because he was a tough and stubborn guy, but because you, his beloved wife Ellen, his children Eric and Julie, Katina and Jeff, Elise and Steve, Jeff, Deborah and Rick, his grandchildren Katie and Robbie, Donna and Shane, Nick, Carson, Bennett, Kellen, Sienna, and Riley, and 3 great-grandchildren, Hannah, Aiden, and Brooks. All of you gave him so much more for which to live. As you saw in the video, Gene was very proud to call himself a native of Black Mountain, and that his family was one of the first ever to have a TV there. But his pride really stemmed from the fact that both his grandfather and his father were doctors, taking care of the people of Black Mountain. Gene was sad that he didn't get to know his grandfather except through stories because he was 4 when his grandfather died. But he greatly admired his father's commitment and bravery in facing some serious stuff in his rounds, but never bringing it home with him, and that he made house calls to the African American community at a time when some doctors would not go into their homes or provide them needed care. Gene felt it was also noteworthy that his parents were close to the Graham family. They were patients of his father's in the early days, and Billy Graham's wife came to his father's funeral. Gene also spent a good deal of his life in Sacramento, California. First, he earned his engineering degree at the University of Tennessee, which made good use of his extraordinary ability with numbers and details. As an aside, he told me he could remember people's phone numbers from 20 years before. Gene, though, then went on to attend Cal State Sacramento to earn his master's in public administration, and for nearly 2 decades he served the California Department of Housing and also the Department of Health Services. In his spare time, he served on the Boy Scouts Council, Star, Life, and Eagle Board of Review. As a child, as you saw in the video, he grew up very active in scouting and earned his own Eagle Award and his God and Country Award for 150 hours in service to his church, singing in the choir an hour a week and cleaning the chapel. For his extraordinary dedication to scouting, Gene was initiated into the Scouting Honor Society, the Order of the Arrow, which recognizes scouts who exemplify the scout oath and law in their daily life, and who maintain camping traditions, develop future leaders, and provide cheerful service to others. He was proud to have attended 2 world jamborees, one in Valley Forge and the other in Irvine Ranch, California, and told me that he played the trumpet in the band. Music was dear to Gene. If not for COVID, we might have had Seth Reinhardt here to come and play the banjo for this celebration of life. One of my memories was meeting Ellen and Gene at Zuma Coffee House in Marshall, where there's a bluegrass jam every Thursday evening. He was in heaven there. And to me, it always seemed like he knew everybody, like he was the mayor. Actually, Gene's public service didn't stop when he and Ellen moved back to North Carolina. Among his positions on the Weaverville Planning and Zoning Board, the senior Tar Heel legislature, he was also commissioner to the Weaverville Town Council for 2 terms, or 8 years. But in recent years, Gene told me that the most meaningful work that he was engaged in was serving on the Buncombe County Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee. He felt good about advocating for and being an ombudsman for residents of long-term care facilities. At the same time as he was serving in so many public capacities, Gene was also being a great dad, grandfather, and great-grandfather. As Eric told me, he wasn't always a softie. There was a little tough love mixed in there. But at his core, his dad was a nurturer, in the sense that he held his heart in such a way that there was acceptance for everyone to be who they are, as different and diverse as all of his children and grandchildren are. For all 5 of his and Ellen's children, Jean made it very clear that theirs was a single family, not a blended family with steps and distinctions. As Elise mentioned, he was a solid provider for the family. Jean was the one who helped with the science fair projects and took her to get stitches. He was consistent and solid. For Rick, Jean's openness made it possible for them to have very different political perspectives but enjoy mutual admiration for one another. Jeff and Deborah also felt that way, totally accepted as one of his own from day one until the end. It wasn't that everything was always perfect, but Jean tried mightily before he died to make things right that may not have been right. Jean was also beloved to his grandchildren. Whether it was fishing in the pond or riding on the golf cart, they loved spending time with him. Carson and Bennett feel so privileged to have grown up with Jean and Ellen here in Asheville. And it was a particular joy for Jean to meet his 3rd great-grandchild, Brooks, who was born just 7 months ago. When his own kids were young, he and Ellen created a home where the neighbors were welcome to hang out. There was that old beat-up truck that he and Ellen used when they were rehabilitating apartments that the neighbors' kids would pile into. And they made memorable New Year's parties together, complete with black-eyed peas for good luck in the new year. Jean was quite the cook. He was known for many things. The key lime pie that he made that beat the caterers at a cook-off that took place at Elisa's wedding a few years ago. There were his collard greens, his pickled tomatoes, and his favorite greasy cut short beans. Special people in Jean's life got treated to the McGrampy, a buttermilk biscuit, cheesy eggs, bacon, and a lot of butter, because as we know, butter makes everything better. Rick credits part of his skills as a cook and to his attention to detail and precision that was part of Jean's engineering brain. With food and all things, Jean could be very particular, perhaps stubborn, that there was a way that things needed to be done, which was his way. But Rick also admits that usually Jean's way was the right way. On my last visit with Jean, I asked him to retell me the story of he and Ellen's romantic love affair. It wasn't easy for him to talk, but he was determined to give me all the details of how they got together later in life after being high school sweethearts at the JCC pool. That may have been my favorite hour with Jean. Ellen, you were the love of his life, and you went through it all together, including seeing him through more than 35 surgeries. It's a lot. And as much as it is painful to let him go, perhaps there's some comfort for you in knowing that all that suffering is over. And that he died as he lived, with a fierceness that made him who he was and made him someone we all loved. Yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo, may he finally rest in peace. Amen. At this time, some family and friends are going to share a few words. First, his granddaughter, Sienna, followed by Cindy Morgan, a friend, Marilyn Friedman, a friend. Elise will read a piece from Doug, who is also a friend, and then Eric, his son, will speak on behalf of all of the siblings in the family.
So I wanted to start off by sharing a quote I found, and it says that everything we say at funerals should be said at birthday parties instead. We leave so much love unspoken, and I find that really true. The last time I saw my grandpa was the time I learned the most about him. I learned what a wonderful person he was, and he shared amazing stories of his adventures. I had never before seen his true self. He was always an amazing grandfather, dad, husband, and cook. I will forever miss his McGrampies. But I got to see a side I had never before seen of him. I then realized how much he cared for and loved all his family and friends, and I know how much he didn't want to leave each and every one of you. I remember playing with my cousins in his train room while he showed us all his toy trains. I remember going to Dollywood and having such a fun day. I remember catching fireflies in his backyard every time I came to visit. But most of all, I wish I could have said this to him. But thankfully, I know he's listening from above, playing Rocky Top and watching over us all.
Hi, I'm Cindy Morgan, and I'm privileged to have been a friend of Jean's for many years in the family. And I'd like to start out by saying my friendship with Jean, especially in the beginning, was very casual. I knew him in passing as the husband of my dear friend Ellen, and I just knew him to say hello and admired him from a distance. This time in my life, about 4 years ago, I was where you are now. I was grieving at the loss of someone very dear to me who I was married to for most of this lifetime, my husband Cosby. And I was armored up and I was numbed out. I told myself, I'm fine. I'm out on my farm, nature's out there, all is well. I told my children this, I told my friends this, I told myself this. That was a huge mistake. Self-betrayal has its consequences. And so, shortly after that, my cell phone rang, and Jean Knoeffel's name came up on the identifier. And I said, this is a mistake. This is Ellen. Her phone's broken, and she's using Jean's number to call me to set up the girls' dinners that we all had monthly. Hello. No, it's Jean's voice. Cindy, how are you doing? Ellen and I want to take you to lunch. And I thought, well, gee, that's nice, I'll go to lunch, sure. So that began the process of an intimate relationship and friendship that I had with Jean Knoefel and Ellen, because they took me to lunch for the next 2 years, just about every month. And that first luncheon, I will never forget. We went to a restaurant of your choosing. I can't remember what the name of it was. And here were Jean and Ellen with their white hair in their late 70s telling me that love story about Jean working at the Jewish community-centered pool and how he met Ellen, because I began the conversation that way, just as you would with anyone you're beginning a friendship with. Well, how did you two meet? Jean, his face glowed, his eyes sparkled. Ellen sat there. She had heard the story a million times. She was glowing. And I remember I couldn't see anything else in the restaurant. The booths were so high that there were no other diners. There were no wait staff. It was just Jean and Ellen. And Jean's love for Ellen. At that moment, I felt a seismic shift within myself. Their love for each other infused me with an opening that I didn't know I had. And I didn't know what was happening at that first luncheon, but my cell phone continued to ring. Jean's voice continued to say, "Cindy, how are you doing? Ellen and I want to take you to lunch." Within those ensuing months, what Jean valued was spoken of every time we met: his children, his friends, his community. He spoke of his volunteer work with the nursing homes. He looked forward to trips to be with his children. He lived his life from his heart, and he showed me how to proceed with the rest of my life and how to be available and not invulnerable. Because I knew that being fine was really half dead. And that's what I was telling people. And so I became a recipient of Jean's love, how he lived his life from his heart, how he gave his time to what he valued. And I've recently read a book by Dr. Bruce Perry. He's a neurobiologist and champion for children experiencing trauma in their life. And in this book, he brings forward the scientific and empirical data that state the ability to live a fulfilling, joyful, vital, meaningful life is directly correlated with our capacity to give and receive love. Jean, in my opinion, was born with that capacity. He lived it every day. It was natural to him. I appreciate who he was as a person, what he did for me, and I know what he did for me. If you crossed his pathway, you were affected by this man. And so by making his empathic connections, I know not just toward me, but everyone he met, he was a transformer. And he deepened my capacity to give and receive love. And I believe he was parachuted in for a reason and a season, and the impact of what he did for me has lasted a lifetime. So I'd like to finish with an anonymous poem. I wish I knew who wrote this poem, but this is what it says. We cannot tell the precise moment when friendship is formed, as in filling a vessel drop by drop. There is at last a drop which makes the heart run over. From my heart, I thank you, Jean, and I thank you, Ellen.
Cindy's a hard act to follow, I have to tell you. Jean asked me to speak when this time came. What an incredible honor. The story of Jean and Mare began many years ago, more than I own up to, when we had the pleasure of meeting Ellen and Jean and soon became family. Jean and I had a very special relationship. I mean, there were a few people who could get away with calling me Mare, and Jean was one. We were very competitive when it came to fishing. Somehow, he always caught the first and the biggest. Go figure. But I always caught the most. I remember one of our offshore fishing adventures. Sandy and Jean came down to join us. Jean decided he was going to make egg sandwiches for breakfast. If you've ever experienced Jean making eggs, he beats the hell out of them, literally. Right, Ellen? He would be up at 4 a.m., and Sandy and I finally put an end to his cooking and said, "You are waking the neighbors up." Last Saturday, I was awoken at 4:08 a.m. by crashing of a hand-blown plate that Ellen and Jean had given us many years ago. I knew it was his way of saying, "I'm with you and will be always." I am forever grateful to have known Jean and thankful for many of the blessings he has passed over the years. His humor, kindness are two of many I will always cherish. His zeal for life was truly unmatched. May we all be blessed by our memories and aim to be more like him. He was a special man that came from a mold few have. He was one of a kind, and if you ever think you'll meet another Gene Knoefel, well, as he would say, I don't friggin' think so. May he rest in peace. Love, Mayor. And by the way, Gene, Bama beat Tennessee as usual.
I have the honor of speaking on behalf of Doug Thoreau. My wife Bonnie and I had the pleasure of meeting Jean and Ellen 25 years ago when they moved back to their beloved home area of Western North Carolina after Jean's retirement from his position with the state of California. Through the years, we all became good friends. You can read, and you've already heard some, and you'll hear more about what an incredibly accomplished and good person Jean was. But you may also be interested to know with everything else he was involved in, with all of this, he was also learning to play fiddle. Amazing. And as Doug said, I guess when you're an alumni of the University of Tennessee Volunteers, you volunteer. That's what Jean did. I feel very fortunate to have known a man like Jean and proud to be able to call him a friend. What I will miss most was his sense of humor and how we used to banter back and forth. Jean will not only be missed by family and friends, but also by the town of Weaverville, Land of Sky, Buncombe County, and the state of North Carolina for all of his dedication and hard work. Rest in peace, Jean. And I had the pleasure of chatting with Doug briefly a couple days ago, and I was able to learn how he met my parents. Jean and Mom were in California and looking for property here, and Doug was responsible for showing the available lots. So if you want to hear a good story sometime, ask Doug about it. But apparently Jean called. He can tell you the full story. Apparently Jean called from California and said he was sending out a man to look at one of the lots for them. Up showed my grandfather Hyman, and for those of you who knew Hyman, you'll understand what that encounter with that Southern gentleman boss man, who was 80-something at the time, must have been like for Doug. You add Hyman and Jean together on this project, and you certainly had a solid and well-prepared team looking for the property. Out of that first encounter came a 25-year friendship between Doug and Bonnie and my parents and the wonderful community back here. While my brother Eric is going to be speaking on behalf of us kids, I wanted to just add a couple things to Doug's meaningful words. When Mom and Jean came back to North Carolina, I was still in California, and the plan was for them to go back and forth. And that lasted one trip. They ended up getting rid of the condo they had gotten out in California and stayed. And the distance has been hard, especially at times when I wish we could be closer. Asheville is my hometown too, and it's a long way from family. But last night when my husband Steve and I were walking down their street, I thought about how much Mom and Jean loved being here with all of you and with this area. The richness of Asheville and Weaverville, visits to the Biltmore House, Cashers, Charleston, Dollywood, the time with so many of you, and the depth of wonderful family and friends. As hard as the 2,546 miles between us is, when I see the strength of the community here and the love they have from all of you, it brings me contentment. And I know my mama, as she walks out this next chapter of life, is in good hands here with gratitude.
Took this off, but I'm just going to leave it here, Marilyn, so you can see it. Just wanted to get that last point in. So I want to say thank you on behalf of the family to all of you that are here in person, to the many that are streaming this live, to so many who've expressed their love and support, its meaning is immeasurable. I would be remiss if I didn't say a few specific thank yous. So I want to say a very heartfelt thank you to Jean's caregivers over the past year, Raven and Gretchen, whose support to him and to Ellen is immeasurable. To Abby and Four Seasons. And to the wonderful staff at the Western North Carolina Baptist Home, who for the last 2 weeks of his life expressed a grace in allowing our presence and nurturing him and really loving him in a way that supported all of us. We say thank you. So with that, I hope I leave some emotion behind, and I want to celebrate the blessing that is my father's life. It is incredibly hard for me to stand here and represent a life so adventurous and so well lived, and to represent my siblings, all of you who are so diverse, and to share their stories. But it's important. So I want to tell you a little bit about my dad from my earliest recognition, what I remember, and recognize, too, that I'm 56, and I struggle to remember last Tuesday, much less many years ago. But I remember Dad when he was a bachelor and single and a single parent to me, and we would hang out together and enjoy the unofficial meal of single parenthood, right? A grilled cheese smothered in tomato soup. I remember all of those wonderful times, and many of his friends from those days, and they know who they are, and I'm sure I'm leaving some out, but Paul and Mike and AJ and the others, and some of the crazy times. They would water ski a lot, and I got the privilege of going along on many of those adventures. Who pulls a ski boat with a small convertible? That would be my dad. And so he did things with a natural flair that made an impression upon me to this day. He is and remains a shadow of a life that is larger than life for me. And as I recognize the family that we've built, that he built with his love, Ellen, my mom, bless you, and we couldn't be more diverse. In bringing us together, if you were to put it down on paper, you would convince yourself it makes no sense. We're a crazy group of various political views. I love my brother Rick, self-professed bleeding heart liberal. My dad, more of a small government conservative guy, so lots of fun and diversity there, but Protestant, Jewish, and as the rabbi said, he made it work, you made it work. It wasn't blended, it wasn't half, it wasn't step. My sister Katina, who was adopted in her early life and came back in her teens and walked into this family and expressed her feeling that he never made it feel like there was division or separation. She was always loved, as if she were always a part of the family, because she always was. And so I've experienced that joy of having this wonderful family. Dad was adventurous, and you saw in some of the photos some of the crazy things he did. And the amazing journeys he took us on. As a parent myself, I reflect on the logistics and what a nightmare it is just to get the whole family in a car and to go on some of the trips we went on. We went to Jenner by the sea and stayed in cabins. We went on amazing trips to theme parks like Six Flags, and we went to Tahoe a lot. And Lake Tahoe was a special place where we would go. And one of the adventures I remember sharing with Brother Jeff that we remember was the time that we got snowed in and trapped in the car in a snowbank and rescued by a snowplow and a condescending sheriff that I think was judging my parents' parenting skills. As Jeff and I rode gleefully on the side of the snowplow, and we all ended up in some small hotel room in Truckee until we could recover from that. But I have amazing memories of my childhood of things like that. Rick shared a couple of stories that he remembers, that whole sense of adventure. Dad playing hooky and them having donuts early in the morning from Maria's, and I agree with you, arguably still some of the best donuts I've ever had. And then taking off for Tahoe and having one of those spring days on the slopes where very few people were there, and enjoying that time of getting out and having a chance to ski and do fun things. I remember, this sense of family that he brought to us. And Elise expressed it to me as we were remembering how we didn't feel separate and step and different. We just felt like a family. But one funny story that she told and reminded me of, she was speaking downtown and doing something. I was probably 17, maybe 18, just before I joined the military. And I went downtown Sacramento to pick her up. And in doing so, I turned the wrong way on a one-way street, and as luck would have it, a cop was there, and he pulled us over. And, the questioning, the flashlight in the face, and the "what are you two kids doing" look upon his face. And I said, I just came downtown to pick up my sister. Here I am, this full head of blonde hair, blue eyes, my beautiful sister with her brown eyes and dark hair, and I got the flashlight in the face with the "I'm not buying what you're selling" look, right? And so my sister had the brains to say, stepsister. It never dawned on me to say that, and of course she probably saved me from an embarrassing perp walk that night of being handcuffed and led astray. So our family has these rich memories of growing up. Rick shared another one that, going back to their sometimes political divisions and just viewpoints that differ on that they had gone out. My dad felt it was important to go get, some might say steal, but go get a sign off the side of the road that was a railroad sign, because he knew it would look better in his train room than on the side of the road. And they tell the story of feeling pursued, and maybe even the helicopter hovering above with its searchlight shining down on them. And I think Gene won that argument for less intrusive government that night, but maybe not the rest of the time. Just a ton of different things growing up that speak to his character. I was asked today by a coworker if I could name one trait that I felt I inherited from my dad, and I said perseverance. It was the most political correct way I could say stubborn. He was incredibly stubborn, and it came from his analytical process, from his engineer's mind, from his desire to fix life as if it were a puzzle and make everything work for everybody, with empathy and with love and with a sense of service, from his scouting days, from his respect of his parents' medical career and all of those things. And I inherited that as well. But he had a stubborn will to live. Many surgeries. And the last many years, painful infirmity. And yet he insisted on persisting, on being a part of our lives, unwilling to release the family and the love that he had garnered, that he had built, that he had brought around him, the life that he and Ellen had made together. That stubbornness, wow. I hope that I only inherited a measure of it for my kids' sakes, but it was part of his character. Going back to all the adventures that he had, that will to live, that zest for life. How else can you describe him but a person whose life was lived fully and lived well, and whose legacy will live on because of the character that he was, of the love that he surrounded himself with, and of the life that he built that I see reflected here in the many faces of his friends and his loving family. So, one more dutiful thing to remind you that Mom wanted me to say is, for those of you here, it's very important for us to know your presence and share that. If you haven't signed the registry book in the lobby, please do so for those of you viewing us and streaming online, there's an online registry at the Morris Funeral Home site. We wish that you would sign that as well, so we can feel the expression of love that you have for us. And I say, thank you, Dad. We love you. Go Vols.
Well, that's fitting because Gene and I were lovers of bluegrass music. And I didn't expect to stand up here and listen to that. That's very nice. My name is John Buckner, and Gene and I were close friends since childhood. And we had an agreement that whoever passed on first, the other one would have to stand up and talk about them. So regretfully, I'm here to fulfill my part of the bargain. Gene and I essentially grew up together. He was the first friend that I remember as a child and that was a long, long time ago. So we've been friends ever since. We've shared a lot of life's milestones. We went to school together. We graduated from high school together. We both received our Eagle Scout awards at the same time. We grew up hiking and camping in these mountains before it was a popular pastime. And then we went off to college together. And over our time together, we tried to get into a lot of trouble, as boys will. We were probably saved by our mothers, because Jean always said that our mothers, both of them, had eyes in the back of their heads. We just couldn't get away with much at all. Anyway, we both went to North Carolina State. We were roommates down there until he transferred to University of Tennessee. And his career took him to the West Coast, and mine kept me on the East Coast. But we always stayed in contact. Sometimes it was a lengthy time before we talked, but we always did. And then when he and Ellen retired and moved back here, we would talk periodically on the telephone. We would get together for lunch when we could, but always were best of friends. And I've kept up with his career over the years, and I'm proud of what he did in his career. I'm proud of what he did for his community when he and Ellen moved back here. He will sorely be missed. I'm also proud of Ellen and the long road that she has traveled and looking after Jean. Her wisdom and strength and courage are something to behold. I'm impressed with all of that I've heard from the family and friends, and Jean deserves every word of it.
Gene didn't leave anything to chance. So he told me exactly what he wanted for today when the time came. And that was a non-religious celebration of life. So that non-religious celebration of life is now concluded. But for Ellen, for whom it's meaningful and comforting to rest in some of our Jewish traditions, I'm going to invite you to rise so that we might say Kaddish with her and honor also the fact that in the same way that Gene didn't make distinctions about who was part of his family and who wasn't, Gene is part of our family here at this temple. So I feel like I want to also say Kaddish for him. It's on page 294. Yitzgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah Be'alma divra chirute ve'amlich malchute b'chaye chon u'b'yomei chon u'b'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevorach le'olam l'olmei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'yit hadar, v'yit aleh, v'yit halal, shmei dekudasha brichu, le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. You may be seated for a moment. Family has requested that in lieu of flowers, friends can make donations in Jean's memory to any charity of your choice that's meaningful. Again, I want to invite our friends at home to make sure that you sign the virtual guest book on the Morris Funeral Home site. And I'm sure that as the family is going to exit these front doors, that if you would like to greet them as you leave, you may do so. And this concludes our service. Thank you for all being here to support Ellen and family.